And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous waters. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again. I keep forgetting how you made that so clear. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again.
I got street now.
And what kind of player?
All right. You know, so I'm driving, about to go to a candidate event up in Somersworth, New Hampshire. While I'm driving, I'll grab dinner by the beach, grab a nice cold beer because it's 90 plus degrees outside, and it is painfully humid in New Hampshire. All right, I'm using, if the video is shaky, I apologize. Using my vehicle thing. Now, the reason I want to do this breakdown is Piers Morgan just did an interview with Dave Rubin and the omni-liberal, Destiny, the ultimate beta. And he went on, and the reason I say this is because, men should act on principle. And if you're going to lecture others on principle, you should probably be abiding by the very same principle you lecture others on. Okay, I try to embody the very same principles I lecture both my own party and the left on. I try to embody the level of tolerance, not acceptance, tolerance for others. I treat other people with respect as long as they treat me with respect, so on and so forth. Basically, if you look back at a history of the breakdown of civility when it comes to political conversation, this is nothing new. Civility is honestly it's a sham. At the times where we seem to have the most decorum in Congress and in politics, the average citizen gets run roughshod over. And the reason why is because it lulls us to sleep into thinking that everything is working just fine. When in reality, it's just that the people in charge in their nicely tailored, well-dressed suits sit behind closed doors, smoking cigars, figuring out how to get their own agendas passed while screwing the average citizen on a day-to-day basis. Look at our founding fathers. They beat each other with canes. They fought on the House floor. There was no shortage of rabble-rousing and extremists and an extreme lack of decorum. There was definitely a lack of civility. They spoke very poetically and they sorted shit out with their fists when civility would break down. And what I wanted to bring up is if you look at, we went, I'd say about all the way up to the Ronald Reagan era. I mean, it doesn't matter which era you're in, whether you're in the era of Tammany Hall, there was no civility. There was violence in the streets. You're in the Woodrow Wilson era, there were riots all over the country. The Great Depression, there were riots and there were attacking of lawmen and politicians. If you go through the Civil Rights Movement, there was the hosing down of citizens who were just asking for us to solve their grievances. If you go to the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, you had riots, you had a lack of decorum between politicians, activists, and extremists fighting against each other, trying to get our points across. You had the KKK lynching people. You had both sides of the aisle. There was no decorum. There was this veneer of decorum because you saw the people in suits talking about politics a certain way, and the media would lull us to sleep by pretending to be nonpartisan while being completely partisan. And then it ratcheted up. during Ronald Reagan, because Ronald Reagan was an anti-establishment guy, very much like JFK. And the establishment on both sides of the aisle hated him because he was going to screw up their game if he really accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. Then you had that went into Bush Sr., and then it went into Clinton, and then it went into Bush Jr., the Iraq War and the Gulf War and Monica Lewinsky and all that stuff. You had just constant one thing after another boiling over, impeachment trials, and then it ratcheted up further under Obama. And then it ratcheted up even when you got the BLM, the riots, the kneeling, all that stuff. You had Occupy Wall Street. You had birth of the Tea Party movement. And then you go under, going into Trump from 2014 on, you had Trump, you had Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters calling for the harassment of Republicans. You know, don't let them sit down and eat in peace and harass them wherever they go. And you see a MAGA hat, you make yourself heard and harass your average American citizen for the way that they vote. All right. So let me be very, very clear. The lack of civility has always been here, but it seems like it's worse than ever before. And the reason why it seems like it's worse than ever before is because for the vast majority of the country, the only time you would notice how bad it was is if you turned on the news. But it wasn't happening in your backyard. So it's easy to ignore. But now you have social media, and with the average person in the country being on social media, you can see every instance of political violence, every instance of lack of decorum, lack of civility, because politics has become like this social media game show, this reality TV show that we all tune into. We all root for our sides. We all root for our favorite characters. In reality, at the end of the day, we all still get fucked. The point is, the lack of civility has always been there, but now you have access to all of it. Worldwide, nationwide, you can see the things that happen behind closed doors. You have Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum literally telling you out in the open exactly what they're going to do to you because they think you're powerless and you can't do shit to stop it. And they're playing in your face and they're telling you that they're playing in your face. And there's still, and when you lobby your politicians to do something about it, there's nothing they can do. When your jobs get shipped overseas, they tell you, suck it up, buttercup, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, which is literally an impossible task. That's literally where that phrase originates from, is we're telling you to accomplish an impossible task. You physically cannot lift yourself up by the bootstraps. Okay? We're telling you to rage against the machine. And you see this lack of civility, and you see this continue, and it got really, really bad under Obama, then it got worse under Trump, and now it got worse again under Biden, and now we're hitting a peak of it under Trump, before we even get to another Trump term, with what happened Saturday with them taking a shot at the President of the United States. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? What the hell is wrong with people? You know, I'm not going to sit here and call for civil war or harassing the people on the other side of the aisle or going at people because of their political beliefs, harassing anyone who disagrees with you, because I know that everything that I advocate for is going to be advocated for against me. Okay? And even when people advocate for that against me, if you really, truly like Dr. King's legacy, then you would understand that what he was preaching for us to do is to speak to each other with a modicum of respect and empathy. Okay? Empathize with your fellow American, because we are all Americans. Okay? Empathize with the people around you. Empathize with their situation. Empathize with their grievance of government. As my boy Maj Toure says constantly, and I constantly reference this because I think it's a point that we all end up missing. We are all airing our grievances against the government. against our politicians, against our local government, our state government, our city government, our federal government. We are whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's teachers unions, whether it's entities of the government, entities of the state, we're lobbying our complaints about how policy affects us, how we've been hurt in our daily lives by their actions, or we've been ignored when we lobby them to fix the problem. And guess what? Their answer is always the same. We don't care. We want to band-aid the problem just long enough to get reelected. We don't want to solve problems. We want to band-aid the problem long enough to get reelected so that we continue to band-aid the problem. We can continue to get reelected because the grift is good in DC. And it works the same for pundits, influencers, and activists. All right. You notice there's a lot of activists that started out being highly effective and then they stepped out of their lane and they started getting rich. And all of a sudden they're no longer effective, but they're getting really, really rich. A lot of it is placating to a base within an echo chamber. And the benefit of being an activist is you don't actually have to be right. You don't actually have to be measured for accomplishing any sort of tangible results. You just get to scream loud at the top of your lungs for the people standing in the room with you who all universally agree with you, because we're siloing each other off and ourselves off into echo chambers. The civility in America is a myth. But is it ratcheting up? Oh, yes, it is. I don't understand how anybody could possibly argue that for 8 years, you had people saying, harass these people, harass conservatives, harass Trump supporters. He's Hitler. He's the end of democracy. He's this, he's that. You know what? We need to start talking to each other with empathy and with basic human respect. Talk to each other like adults. Okay? Normal people don't have conversations by belittling the other side. We have conversations about solutions. Okay? We want to come to an understanding of each other. If we can come to an understanding of where each other are coming from, we can come to a solution. And if we can't come to a solution, we can at least, by understanding each other, agree to disagree. And we can respect each other in disagreement. We got into a devolution of basic rational conversation. Each side wants to view each other all as extremists. I guarantee you, guess what? 30% of the roughly 30% of the country are Republicans, about 30% are Democrats, and the rest of the country are independents or unaffiliated voters. And I'm telling you right now, it does not behoove anybody to view 30% of the country as all extremists. And if 30% of the country were extremists, America would be in a lot worse position than it actually is right now. The vast majority of us want to live normal lives, want to pay our bills, and want to be left alone to do whatever the hell we're doing without whatever the other side believes being shoved down our throats or legislated. Okay? Now, to Destiny's comments, he kept pontificating about how if conservatives were even in the least bit empathetic towards what happened towards Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, when he was attacked, or any other liberal when they're attacked, that he would take it seriously. But let me tell you, when Steve Scalise was attacked, there was no empathy. When the GOP baseball game was shot up, there was no empathy. When Rand Paul was attacked, there was no empathy. When Tucker Carlson's house was attacked, there was no empathy. When friggin' Trump supporters are attacked, there was no empathy. When old men with Trump hats were getting hit in the head with bricks, there was no empathy. The reality is, I see, and don't get me wrong, you will not see me making excuses for the ratcheting up of the rhetoric on the Republican side of the aisle, because I don't make excuses. Once again, I call it like it is across the board, and I don't believe in calling for civil war. I don't ratchet up the violence talk. I don't believe in ratcheting up the idea of you're all the enemy and you're all the others and you're all satanic and you're all socialist, communist, whatever. There are people who do fit that bill, and we should specifically be calling out those individuals and the rest of the people, and we should be applying the proper amount of nuance and empathy to the conversation, and the rest of the people happen to vote a different way than us and may disagree with us on policy from time to time or watch a different news source than us, approach them as they are. Make them out to be the enemy. They're your fellow Americans, whether you believe they're misinformed or ill-informed or whatever, or completely uninformed or misinformed. The point is, the lack of civility has been here for a long time, including political violence. It's not new. Trump is not the first president to get a shot taken at him. He's not even the first president to have an attempt made on his life. There were multiple attempts made on his life in his previous presidency. There's been multiple attempts on Biden and Obama and Bush Jr. and Bush Sr. and Clinton. You just don't hear about most of them because most of them don't involve somebody actually getting a shot off. Most of them don't involve somebody actually making contact. The Secret Service is not about going out and letting everybody know that somebody made an attempt. They arrested somebody who had a plot to assassinate the president. They stop most things before they get to that. And yes, there were failures 10 ways till Sunday. But what I want to iterate to people, is yes, we need to calm down the rhetoric. Yes, we need to tone things down. Yes, you do need to take the principled stance of when somebody commits political violence, it is not okay. I don't care which side of the aisle does it. I don't care who's calling who out. I don't care whether you got a red t-shirt on or a blue t-shirt on. I don't care whether you're blood or a crip. It's not okay. We can have conversations like adults. Because ratcheting up the rhetoric only leads to more violence. It only leads to people thinking that toning it down is a hopeless concept. And there will be people in the comments who respond to this video and say that it is hopeless. There will be people who tell me that I'm wrong. And you know what? By all means, you feel hopeless. It is what it is. I can only inspire you to be the principled conservative or Republican that I am. I can inspire you to live up to the principles that this country was founded on. We are not at the point where violence is the necessary option that we need to go with. We are still at a point where civil discourse is a possibility. Okay? And the reason it is still a possibility is because the vast majority of people in the country thought that what happened on Saturday was still wrong. Yes, you heard some crazies on the left who've been completely indoctrinated, like Destiny, who are okay with it as long as it happens to the other team, but they abhor it when it happens to their own team. I say I don't want anybody harmed. I don't want anybody on either side of the aisle harmed. I may not agree with you on policy, but you're still American. I want you to be able to live your life unmolested by government and unmolested by your fellow man. I am utterly ashamed that it's gotten to this point. And I believe a lot of it is squarely on the shoulders of the media. Because the media propagated the Trump is Hitler thing. The media propagated the Obama is a threat to the Republic thing. The media has been ratcheting up the rhetoric because we all know if it bleeds, it leads. That's how the media operates. We don't do stories about firefighters saving kittens from trees. We don't talk about the heroes and the great things that they do. Everything's got to devolve down to a negative political narrative. One of the things I hate about politics is we spend so much time attacking the other side rather than talking about what we plan to do and the good things that we believe in and trying to inspire people towards a better future. Well, let me clue you in on something. Ford does not spend more time talking about their competition, whether it's Dodge or Chevy or Toyota or anybody else, than they do trying to convince you that there is a Ford for every walk of life, and that no matter what the issue is in your life, that Ford is going to solve that problem. They market their policy. They market what their product is. They do the best they possibly can to tell you how they can solve your problems. They do not spend their time telling you how evil Chevy is. Chevy worked for Hitler. They're going to come. I have yet to see an American politician that I truly believe is Hitler-esque in our generation, by the way. Preface that. I have yet to see a politician in our generation in America that I believe is Hitler-esque. Okay. I believe there's a lot of ignorant people, there's a lot of misinformed people, there's a lot of idealistic people, there's a lot of people who feel hopeless and dejected. There's a lot of people who feel like there's no good step after this, that no matter what happens this election cycle, it's all going to fall down. I understand where people are coming from with that. But I don't believe that America's best days are behind us. I believe they're in front of us. I believe the future is as bright as you want it to be. But I believe if you want the future to be bright, you're going to have to get up off your ass and do something about it. I believe if you want the future to be bright, you're going to have to actually get active in your local community. Because as I continue to say, the federal government, too many of us focus on the federal government. There are very few of us who can operate at the national level, whether due to knowledge, effectiveness, strategy, resources, notoriety, whatever. Very few people who can operate at the national level. Most of you are the equivalent of the National Guard. You are supposed to be shoring up your communities against whatever disaster might take place, whether it's homelessness, which is a local issue, in a state issue, abortion, which is a local and a state issue, education, which is a local and a state issue, criminal justice reform, which is a local and a state issue, prison reform, which is a local and a state issue, police reform, which is a local and a state issue. It doesn't matter what the issue is. In most issues are local and state issues, and when you ask federal politicians to solve those issues and come up with a solution, you will be disappointed because they do not have the knowledge of what is going on in your local community to correctly create a one-off policy that will take into account the situations in every single state. They don't have the knowledge, and it's not supposed to be at that level. You should be lobbying your state reps. You should be getting your state reps elected. You should be holding them accountable. You should be running for zoning board, school board, city council. You should be running for your alderman. You should be running to represent your area, whatever capacity that you have expertise in or you have a passion for. You should be running in that area. You should be talking to your sheriffs. You should be talking to your police chiefs, your district attorneys, your county prosecutor. You can shore up your local and state government to the point where no matter what happens at the federal level, beyond macroeconomic policy or getting into another foreign war of attrition, that your local and state communities are going to be fine. And if you did that, that would tamp down a lot of the lack of civility, because the reality is, when it comes to the role of the federal government, most citizens, normal citizens, not activists, not pundits, not influencers, and don't talk to me about social media dialogue. Social media is not reality. Get out, touch some fucking grass. Vast majority of people, we agree on solutions. When you just talk solutions and you get out of the political thuggery of Bloods versus Crips, this guy versus that guy, you stop talking political personalities, you stop talking parties, you start talking solutions. We agree a lot more on how to approach and solve problems. Even the dialogue surrounding issues, we agree a lot more. But when you start to bring things up to a national level, you take a lot of these social issues that are highly contentious and you push them further and further and further away from you, guess what? You invite more media personalities, more division, and more think tanks, and more people who have an idealistic goal and will sacrifice average citizens at the altar of their ideology, whether it's left or right. I want to make America great again because I'm a goddamn American. Black Lives Matter. I'm a black guy. Of course I think my life matters. I don't think that these two statements are oppositional. I believe all lives matter. And I think when we start looking at each other like human beings and like American citizens, and we stop looking at each other like others, we can solve most issues in society. If you know the news is fake on the other side of the aisle, then you are delusional if you do not think it is fake on your side of the aisle. If you know that they pair talking points to their base to make their base happy, then you should also be aware that your news does the same thing. Okay? You should be just as skeptical as the people on Fox News as you are on CNN. You should be just as skeptical of every single influencer, pundit, activist, including myself. Be skeptical of me. I invite the skepticism. None of us are perfect. Okay? None of us are perfect. A lot of us are highly flawed. But you should be highly skeptical of anyone who is willing to point out the flaws in somebody else, not willing to point out their own flaws. I'm an arrogant son of a bitch, and I know it. I'm an asshole, and I know it. I don't run away from it. I own it. Because I invite you to be skeptical of me because I know I'm not perfect. And I know I get things wrong from time to time. I know I don't always, that I am not without sin, that I am not flawless. And when I get to the pearly gates, I will be judged just like the rest of you. None of us are perfect. As a matter of fact, some of the people who take the most pious, high ivory tower positions and throw thunderbolts at the rest of the world tend to be some of the most decrepit individuals I've met in my life. Claim the moral high ground and are morally bankrupt. But it's excused when it's them doing it. What I'm saying is, we all need to group together. At this point, you're American and you love America, or you don't. And if you're American and you don't love America, and I mean, I'm talking about not the American government, because I don't trust our government at all. I mean, the principles this country was founded on, the principles that we aspire to uphold, the principles that mean so damn much to us, that we all want to, that transparency and accountability in government, a government of the people, for the people, by the people. The conservation of the Constitution, the Republic, and the inalienable rights of individuals to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The idea that we are all imbued with inalienable rights given to us by God, and that no government should be trampling on the rights of others, and that should there at any point in time be a moment where it happens, where we trample upon the rights of citizens, every other citizen should stand up and protect the rights of your fellow Americans, whether you agree with their choices or not. We should be inspiring the next generation to stand up. We should be inspiring the next generation that there is a better tomorrow ahead of us than yesterday. We shouldn't be telling them that it's all decrepit, that there's nothing we can do, that it's hopelessly bankrupt, that society is morally bankrupt, there's nothing we can do. From a very Christian perspective, it's my job to approach people with grace, because it's not my job to judge. It's not my job to cast judgment or to throw thunderbolts from my ivory tower. It is my job to approach you with grace and accept you and deal with you from where you are and help you get to where you want to be. Help you get to a better tomorrow, bring you closer to Christ, bring you closer to your own liberty, to your own freedom. To make life better for the average American. To give you liberty and opportunity. To be successful on your own merits. And to make you believe that what this country was founded upon was special. It was a revolutionary idea then and still a revolutionary idea now. There aren't many countries in the world that actually operate on the base principle that we are imbued with unalienable rights. And yes, our government tramples all over our rights, and both sides of the aisle are perfectly happy to trample on the rights of the people on the opposite side of the aisle if they disagree with their choices or vote a different way or live a certain lifestyle. Yes. And I'm sick of the pendulum swinging back and forth. If you want to bring civility back to society, we need to understand that there is a role of government. It is not to enforce your particular social doctrine on everybody else. You want to eat meat, that's fine. You don't want to eat meat, that's fine. You don't need to force me to be a vegan. I don't need to force you to eat bacon. Speak to each other like adults. Speak to each other with empathy. Focus on solutions over politics. Stop playing the political thuggery game. Like, subscribe, share. God bless everybody. And you know what? I'll leave you with a little song. Way out. Okay?
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.